It is time for the one and only, the premier, the only official podcast of Pro Rodeo. Your Chute Bosses are ready, so let's give it a go and talk some rodeo.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Season 3 of the Chute Bosses. It's Tanner Barth and Tracy Rink here for another exciting season of Pro Rodeo coming your way, Tracy. And we're going to have a lot of great things to talk about today. You know, obviously, we wrap up what happened in Las Vegas as we get into January here. We also sit down and talk with Bradlee Miller, one of those young guns in his first trip to Las Vegas. Changed his life. You know, he finishes fourth in the world standings, had a really good chance to win a gold buckle. And so a lot of great things happening here on today's show.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, the rodeo is one of the things I say all the time. It never ends.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, we go from the NFR, and then we're into January, we're into Denver, and then pretty soon it's Fort Worth and Houston, and it just keeps rolling. There's really no off season, but it's bigger and better than it's ever been, and you see the excitement we saw in Vegas.
Well, one of those reasons why it's bigger and better than it's ever been leads us right into our Pro Rodeo props. And Tracy, you know, coming off of the NFR, I want to give props to Las Vegas events in the city of Las Vegas. You know, it seems every year they just find a way to make this thing bigger and better. You always think, you know, oh, the NFR is the same thing for fans every year. You know, we'll go out, we'll experience the 10 days, we'll leave. But, you know, they just do such a good job. You know, whether it comes down to contestant hospitality, providing more payout for these contestants, you know, the more that it's ever been. But also just, you know, the competition and the way everything's run. It is really a well-oiled machine in Las Vegas, and they deserve their props for putting on, you know, I guess the Super Bowl of rodeo is what some people call it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's 10 nights. That's the biggest thing that, I mean,
yeah,
it's the Super Bowl for football. Don't get me wrong.
They're there for maybe 3 days.
I've been there, but I mean, maybe the NFL people are there maybe 2 weeks to set up, but then it's crunched into a week, and then it's the one game on a Sunday. But, I mean, this is 10 nights of the Super Bowl every night, and there's so many things and so many moving parts. And Las Vegas events, it is a well-oiled machine. I mean, things just happen and like they're supposed to happen. And, I mean, obviously, if they need things to be changed or do different things, they do. But $16.2 million this year. I mean, we're under contract with LVE through 2035. It goes up to $28 million in that last year, that contract. Yeah. And it's just, from my standpoint, and I know you've been part of rodeo for a long time, when I first got involved with this, it was like $8.5 million.
Yeah.
That was the purse at the NFR, and that wasn't even the contestant purse. That was the overall purse. And to see it go up double in 10 years, and it just means so much to these guys, because the hardest part that I saw from an outsider point of view is these guys loved the rodeo, but a lot of them couldn't justify it because you couldn't make a living doing it. Mm-hmm. Now you can make a living doing it. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it extremely hard? Yes. But at least the carrot's out there that you can do it to make a living at it. And that's the coolest thing that I like to see, and LVE is a big part of that.
Yeah, they definitely are. And, you know, we mentioned just being out in Las Vegas, you know, there's so much that goes into it besides just the rodeo. Yeah. You know, they have the buckle presentations that down at the South Point. They have all the stuff that goes on before the awards banquet, convention. You know, it really is you know, it takes hundreds and hundreds of people to make this thing possible. Yeah. And it is kind of crazy when you sit back and look at it, just what all it really does transform into Cowboy Town there during those 10 days and really even 2 weeks in Las Vegas.
Right. It's like March Madness almost with all the teams, because you have to do hotels and autograph signings and all this stuff. But you have to do it for 120 people. I mean, and everybody has to stay in line, and everybody has to do the right thing to make it happen. And everybody, I mean, they have to. It's about a 2 hours and 15-minute performance, 2.5 hours, give or take. It's on live TV, so it makes things change again. And it's been cool to see what LVE's done and what the PRCA has been able to do in this new world we live in with live TV and the money that's out there at the NFR.
Yeah, and we want to remind you all that this episode of the Chute Bosses, the official podcast of Pro Rodeo, is sponsored by Las Vegas, the home of the NFR for 39 years. You can come see why Vegas is the sports and entertainment capital of the world, but you will now have to wait until next December before you can go and watch the best cowboys and cowgirls in the world head to Las Vegas and compete for those 10 nights. And Tracy, we jump to our short round, and we start with the little somber news here. I want to let everybody know that this will be my last episode of the Chute Bosses podcast. Tracy and I started this. What was it now, Tracy? Was it summer of 2022? Or it was September of 2022, and 72 episodes later, you know, we've been through a lot. We've interviewed a lot of cowboys, but this will be my final show as I'm taking another opportunity to work outside of the PRCA, but, you know, can't appreciate you enough, you know, being on the show with me and kind of getting this spearheaded. I know that's something that you kind of wanted to start forever. Took us a little while to get off the ground. You know, people that have been watching the Chute Bosses from the beginning probably saw that we went from a I guess, a little bar that you were barely tall enough to stand behind to where we've advanced.
I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, to where we've advanced now. We got a big TV screen, good cameras, producers. Yeah, it's really changed in the 2.5 years or 2 years that we've been doing this, Tracy. And so I just appreciate you and appreciate the PRCA for giving us this opportunity and kind of trusting us with the Chute Bosses to be able to run. And I know that you and whoever jumps on here as the next co-host will do great things here on the Chute Bosses.
Well, I can't thank you enough because I needed someone like you to move it forward. I mean, I had the ideas and things I wanted to do, but you had a TV background that made it a lot easier for you to go into this. We were like Wayne's World when we started this. It was like public access. You were doing a lot of the video and the guests and everything, and it was always a dream. And to see it come to fruition of what we've been able to do has been incredible. I mean, we've been able to do more things with the Highwaymen and different spin-offs of the Chute Bosses, but we had to start somewhere, and it's been an incredible ride. My Chute Boss Nation people, they asked me a question that they asked me before this, and the biggest thing that you did is not only be a great friend, but you control the crazy with me, with the things we do, the places we've gone. I mean, it's just been, outside of this, it's just been so much fun to work with you. I mean, your first trip was Reno.
Yeah, that was like quite the experience.
It's like going to a frat party in Animal House, and it was enjoyable, and wasn't really what I don't think he expected, and we got to go down different cab rides and different things and stuff in Houston. And Tanner was always controlling the crazy. And I've had fun, and we've always just been good friends. And so it breaks my heart, honestly. I'm not trying to be sentimental, but Tanner is just such a good guy. It breaks my heart to see him leave. But I always encourage people to do bigger and better things in life. But it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we still got plenty of the Chute Bosses to go, so we'll not let that get there. But I just wanted to thank all you fans. As we mentioned, I believe right now on YouTube we have over 100,000 views. Podcast downloads, we're nearing 33,000 shows downloaded in those 72 episodes. So, we continue to get bigger and better, and hopefully you guys can take this thing and run with it, make it bigger and better, and, see how it kind of all shakes out. But enough of that.
You done good, Cowboy. You done good.
Yeah, enough of that, Tracy. Let's jump into the rest of the short round. Let's talk a little bit about the Pro Rodeo season. We mentioned 2024 wrapped up, but it's odd in Pro Rodeo because the 2024 season ends September 30th, but we get circuit finals all the way into the new year in the first couple of weeks of the new year. And, just now we finally wrapped up the 2024 circuit season, and now those Cowboys have kind of punched their ticket, and now it's turning that focus to the NFR Open here in Colorado Springs in July.
Yeah, July 8th through the 12th is the 2025. And, I mean, you've been a part of the NFR Open. It's gotten so much bigger.
It's awesome nowadays.
The money's incredible. And the biggest thing, and I know I'm not speaking out of turn, is the crowds. I mean, when I was covering when it was called the Ram National Circuit Finals Rodeo in Kissimmee and even in Guthrie, it was invitation only. I mean, you couldn't beg people to show up for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I mean, there was just, the fans weren't there. The competition was, and there's still great Cowboys and contestants, but in Colorado Springs, it's found a home. We signed that 7-year contract in June for obvious reasons. I mean, it brings the fans, but you have that carrot now out here for these guys to go to. You can go to Colorado Springs and win $25,000, $30,000 right in the heart of the Pro Rodeo season in July. I mean, that's Cowboy Christmas for some guys if you don't do well at Cowboy Christmas. So, yeah, it's great what they've done. It's crazy how our seasons start October 1st. Then we're finishing the other season at the NFR, and like I've said before, it gets a little confusing and convoluted, but the biggest thing you've learned is you have to control your rodeo count too, especially now with all these new rodeos we have coming in with all this money. So it's just, when the rodeos end in January, it's like, oh, January, it's a new year, but not for us. They just finished First Frontier and Montana Circuit and just move forward. Now you have all these qualifiers and see what happens. And like I said, we roll into Denver. We're right in the mix of Denver, and then we go to Fort Worth, and it just rolls from there.
Well, that's a good teaser, Tracy, to talk about what the Pro Rodeo Sports News is going to be doing. It's actually the 50-year anniversary of the PRCA circuit system. So, going forward, we're going to have an opportunity to sit down and, give you feature stories on these circuits and coming out in the February Pro Rodeo Sports News magazine, which will look a little different. We'll get to that maybe just in a little bit here, Tracy. But, they're going to have a chance to learn a little bit about the Texas circuit. Tony Rainier was there, and he talked a little bit about where they've come and where they're headed, and some of the greats, Trevor Brazil, Ty Murray, included in that article. And I think that'll be good for people to kind of get back and see how much and how important that circuit system is to pro rodeo.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there was different reasons why they started it. I mean, get national exposure, get sponsorships, basically make the circuit guy more relevant in the PRCA. And the biggest thing that's changed, right or wrong, I know there's some arguments, but when you allow the money to count in the circuits and the circuit finals, it changes everything because you're going to get NFR guys. And I know it's tougher for the weekend warrior guy, but in the same way, like Tony Reyna says, if you get a big lick at the circuit or you're able to do a few rodeos and all of a sudden you've won $50,000 or $30,000 or $40,000, you're right there in the mix to start making that push. I mean, and Texas, the Texas circuit specifically, which is the one we feature first that I was able to do, there's so much great competition in Texas anyway. I mean, whether you like the money counting or not, there's so many NFR guys that are in Texas. And I think the circuit system does a lot of great things because it allows guys, one, to get exposure, but two, see if they're ready to take that next step because the circuits have gotten so much tougher.
Yeah, they're very tough.
I mean, they're not like, oh, I'm going to go to the circuit and I'm going to win and I'm going to go to Colorado Springs.
It's NFR guys throughout the entire thing because everyone wants to get to Springs and have a chance at that $30,000 payday.
Right, they want that big payday and they want the money to count in the circuit. And it's harder for some guys, because you have to go to a certain number of circuit rodeos, but it makes it valid to the guys that get there, and they have to compete against the toughest competition out there.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to see how it shakes out this July in Colorado Springs. Make sure you can get your tickets. I'm sure they'll be on sale here in the next couple of months. Tracy, let's go on to a little bit of a sad note here. 1976 PRCA world champion steer roper Charles Good passed away, and believe it or not, Charles and his son Gary are one of just 13 father and son duos all time to ever win a world title. And you think about that. That's pretty unique in pro rodeo because there has been so many father and son. There's so many legacy, contestants in pro rodeo. For there only to be 13, they hold a pretty strong honor. And Charles was definitely one of the best steer ropers going down the road at that time.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is he basically did it part-time. I
Really?
mean, they had a ranch in New Mexico, and it was kind of his thing. They liked the steer roping because they could do it on a low level, so to speak, and only a certain number of rodeos and qualify for the NFSR. But Charles won in 75 and his son won in 79.
Yeah.
The McIntyres are the first father-sons to do it, and then Rocky Patterson and Cole Patterson have been the last. They're the only three in steer roping to win world titles, father and son, and 13 overall, as you talk about, and the Coopers, the Wrights, and all these families, the Fields. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you start putting yourself in that elite group.
So he's definitely one to be remembered in the sport of rodeo, that's for sure. And Tracy, we talked a little bit about it. There are going to be some changes coming to the Pro Rodeo Sports News, the print magazine, that is. Obviously, I was the PSN editor and a digital media specialist, and one of my final editions of the PSN magazine will be this February print that comes out. But if you want to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are coming and what fans can kind of expect to see from the Pro Rodeo Sports News.
Well, basically in the print, we made it more of a feature edition, kind of like the old Sports Illustrated. We want to feature a big feature story. You do the Surveys in this one, the family tradition, the Survey, the legacy, big takeout enterprise stories, and then accompany it with another big feature, which in this issue is the Texas circuit. But that's going to be the squares to each issue in the print. One huge enterprise story accompanied with a bigger, a smaller sidebar story, so to speak. And we're getting away from results. Not because we don't want the results. We're going to put the results all in digital so they stay dated. Everything stays dated. The world we live in, the internet world we live in, it's a new style of journalism. The only reason we took out the results in the print magazine, and I know we're going to get some pushback, is they become so outdated. Yeah. It becomes, sometimes it's 5 weeks before you get our print edition. And we don't have a lot of control over that. That's the way the co-mailing works now. And so 5 weeks later, it'd be like looking at Super Bowl results from the Super Bowl in February, and you're getting it in, March.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Or the end of, and it just doesn't make sense. And we're trying to give you the most bang for your buck, give you more feature stories, peel back the curtain. We want people to know what these Cowboys are like, what makes them tick, and give our readers more of that in the print and shorten the print. And the digital is still going to have all the game coverage like it always has, all the results. And we'll have our same staples like the grill and different things in the puzzle. So that stuff's not going away. But it's just a move that we need to make with the times that we live in because of the way things get dated. I mean, you and I both know, and, anything you want to find out, you can find out in 2 minutes on the internet.
Exactly.
And we understand that. We realize that. And that's the push we're moving forward. But the biggest thing I want to emphasize is we want to do bigger and better feature stories. We've had great feature stories since I've been here, but we haven't really had that format or that outlet to do it this way.
Yeah.
And now we do.
Yeah, and it'll be that long form feature telling, as you said, the 4 to 6 pages, somewhere in that range. So it really will give you an in-depth look, and the changes might be coming, but it'll still be your top source and your best source for pro rodeo coverage here in the sport. Let's go ahead and take a break here on the Chute Bosses. We mentioned we'll have Bradlee Miller coming up. That'll be your final segment here on the show, but also have your ProRodeo Hall of Fame spotlight and your Historic NFR Moment of the Week, all coming up right here on the Chute Bosses.
Cowboying is in our blood. Cowboying is in our bruises. It's in our rain-soaked jackets. In our calloused hands, tested by barbed wire and rope. Our mud-stained boots to the crown of our resist-all hat. You live out west for even the shortest time, and there's one thing you learn. You can't pretend out here. Resist all. We live it every day.
Welcome back into the Chute Bosses podcast, the official podcast of Pro Rodeo. Just in about 10 minutes here, Tracy going to have a chance to sit down and talk with Bradlee Miller. His first trip to the NFR went better than you probably could have ever expected as a rookie making a trip to Las Vegas and having a chance to compete in the Yellow Buck and Chute, so we'll sit down with him. But let's jump off and start this thing off with our ProRodeo Hall of Fame spotlight, and this is going to go back to a 2004 inductee, Alvin Nelson. This is a guy that, really kind of spurred of what a rough stock all-around cowboy can be today. He started his career as a 3-event cowboy, but excelled really as a saddle bronc rider as a pro. 13-year career of riding all 3 and, kind of really focusing on saddle bronc there towards the end. But he went on to win a world title, claimed 2 average titles, and, his 1957 title was kind of historic in the sport when you look at the archives over the years, Tracy, because that title ended a streak of 6 consecutive world championships won by fellow Hall of Famers Casey Tibbs and Deb Copenhaver. And that's where you have to look and say, man, that's a pretty tough stretch to win a world title in, and he was able to do it, and rightfully so. He's in the ProRodeo Hall of Fame. Yeah,
and he should be. I mean, when you do something like that, it's like when guys beat Guy Allen in steer roping.
Yeah.
I mean, Guy Allen won 18 steer roping world titles, but there's people that won in between. And it's so hard to, it's like the Michael Jordan in basketball. You're the greatest player ever, but it's really hard to knock him off the throne. So Alvin did things, and it's incredible to me. I know it's a different world we live in, but to do rough stock in 3 events.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, there's guys that have done it. Obviously, Stetson's done 2. But Ty Murray and Larry Mahan are like the only 2 guys that come to mind that really did 3 in recent memory successfully. I mean, I know there's other guys, and I don't want to leave guys out, but just to do that is incredible to me. And then to do it and then beat a guy like Casey Tibbs to win a world title. So they're rightfully in the Hall of Fame, and that's cool. I mean, and it's cool to, bring up stuff like this with Alvin Nelson, because people forget it. You go in a long time ago, people forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So he definitely deserves his ProRodeo Hall of Fame spotlight. Andrew, if you want to cue up our Historic NFR Moment of the Week, and if it has audio, we'll go ahead and let it play out here, and then Tracy and I will talk about it as soon as we're done here.
Dan Mortensen, ride hay, rode this horse for 87 points at Pueblo. Mortensen's got her tonight. Harry Bold Rodeo Company.
Look at what you're watching. Oh, that's time, buddy.
The Duke of the Chutes, Harry Bold, one of only 2 men to supply livestock for every one of the 45 Wrangler NFRs. Dan Mortensen trying to catch Casey Tibbs. He's going to get a lot closer tonight.
Yes. 90 points even.
How awesome is that, Tracy? You hear the crowd getting into it, and you mentioned who he was going up against to try and catch there to win a world title there. That was the 2003 NFR, and round 2 is a 90-point trip there on Harry Vold's Smokeless Big Valley. And Mortensen, you mentioned him, the Hall of Famer, went on to win the world title that year, and it was his last of 7 gold buckles in Las Vegas.
And I want to say he was the last rough stock guy to win the all-around before Stetson.
Was he?
If I'm remembering right, I can't remember the exact year. Mortensen was one of the best. I mean, you see this ride, and it's guys just rise to the top. I mean, the world champions like this, Hall of Famers, when they have to have that ride, I mean, you got to have a good draw. But when they have the draw, they don't let it slip through their fingers.
Hey, I'm not going to let that he mentioned that Pueblo was in there as
Yeah,
well, the
that's 'cause
hometown
that's
of
a
the
Duke-
Tracy Reed.
Yeah, Duke of the Chutes. That's where Harry Vold, well, he lives in Avondale, a little bit outside in Pueblo County. But yeah, they were mentioning the Duke of the Chutes, Mr. Harry Vold. And it's crazy that, he does this, and it's 22 years ago. I mean, you look at that, that's the other day, and it's like, oh, it's not the other day. It
was when you were watching TV when you were 20. You were watching
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre because you think, it's not, they were saying the 45th NFR when they were talking about this, and now we're what? Now it's going to be the
66th, the 67th.
67th coming up, 40th in Vegas, and time flies, but it's great to see a ride like this. I mean, it's when the best do it, you just appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's definitely a different style they kind of had back then than what we see. They were more kind of straight up in their saddle than what some of our saddle bronc riders get leaned way back nowadays. So definitely cool to look back at a historic NFR moment like that, and who better else than Dan Mortensen to put that on. Let's go to our viewer question, Tracy. This one's going to come from Anna on Instagram. Wants to know, who holds the record for the most money earned at the NFR in 1 year? People might think, these guys had great performances in Las Vegas. They got to be up there, but the money's just changed so much. Obviously there's going to be some recency bias to this. And if we're talking one event, that's bull rider Kai Hamilton last year. I think he, including ground money, was it $341,000 to set the record, which is absolutely crazy in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and Stetson obviously had the 2-event record, 414 and some change. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, what they're winning on, Cassie Mowry this year won 260 to win Top Gun.
Yeah.
And I mean, she won. She went on that crazy.
She won 5 rounds in a row.
Won 5 rounds, but the rounds pay. 30. They pay over 30,000. So just me, no mathematician, could start adding up 30,000 times 5, and it's 150, and then you place in other rounds, and yeah, I mean. But that's life-changing money. The only thing I would worry me when you start looking at these figures is the tax hit, because oh my gosh, because you're getting this essentially untaxed. I mean, you got to have accountants, but and I know we talked to Cowboys about it, but you're going to get a massive tax hit, like when you win in the lotto. So you got to be careful with how much you've won and put enough away to pay.
Why are you throwing up the hypotheticals there?
Uncle Sam, unless you're Wesley Snipes and you don't pay your taxes.
Don't take any advice from Tracy. I've learned that over my years at the PRCA.
Because I'm a helper.
Yeah.
I encourage guys to have Wesley Snipes as their accountant. I mention him as often as I can.
I love it. So there's your viewer answer, Anna. Hopefully that answers your question there for you just a little bit. And Tracy, did you have a Chute Boss Nation? Have they reached out to you? I know they're on a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, they reached out to me, and it was part of what I said about. They asked me about you leaving, and I told them you got fired because I was upset, but then I told him, tell the truth, that you're going on to bigger and better things. And I said it's to control the crazy. Blah, the crazy. See, look at you. See what I'm talking about? You control the crazy.
This guy's been driving me crazy since I started here about 3.5 years ago.
Tanner looks at me like, gosh.
All right, let's move on.
When did he ever stop? That's the famous line from Tanner. Let's move on.
All right.
Give me the mic back.
Yeah, that's enough out of Tracy. Another guy that is a little bit crazy himself, that's old Buck. Have you seen him since you got back from Vegas?
Buck had a rough go. Times are tough. Buck tried to stay at Resorts World and had some tough nights.
Did kick him out or
He had
what?
some tough nights at Resorts World, sleeping in the car.
I saw him at that Rodeo Vegas party that one night.
Yeah.
He was trying to jam out the T-Pain, and they were like, you got to go, sir, you got to go. So
Apple-bottom jeans, boots with the... Yeah, that's Buck. Buck had a good time, and Buck's back. Buck's got some things in store. I got some things in the mix. And I would love to see Buck become a better person, honestly.
He needs to change his life for the better.
Either go way off the grid and be worse, or try to be a better person. That's my goal.
We'll figure out what he is. Let's go to Buck. He's got your Pro Rodeo word of the day.
I'm Buck, the official correspondent of the Chute Bosses, the official podcast of the PRCA. My word for the day is lonely, as it's in lonely at the top when you're winning the world championship and maybe you only get one in your career. When it comes to Buck's lonely, because my good buddy Tanner Barth is leaving. He's going to greener pastures. I feel bad about that, and he hits me on the head. Oh my gosh, Buck's down. I thought you were my friend, Tanner.
That's been years in the making.
Farm life means always hoping for the best, but planning for uncertainty. You have to be ready for the next everything, the next dawn, the next season, the next harvest, the next technology, the next challenge, and the next generation. No matter what comes your way, we can help keep you ready for the next.
Welcome back into the Chute Bosses podcast, the official podcast of Pro Rodeo. Tracy, we talked about it off the top of the show, getting ready to sit down with Bradlee Miller, and he's joining us here now. Bradlee, what a first year in Pro Rodeo it was for you, man. Going to the NFR, having a chance at a gold buckle into round 10. So we can't wait to catch up with you and appreciate you joining us here on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First thing I got to ask is, we obviously saw what you looked like at the end of 10 nights in Vegas. That arm was dragging. You were trying to battle through and win a gold buckle. How are you feeling now? Did you have to work through some things or surgery? Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. I had a lot of nerve issues going on there, and with nerve problems, you need rest. And 10 days in Vegas doesn't give you any rest. So got to come home for 4 or 5 days before Billings, and then a couple days off before Gillette, and then another week before San Diego. So I've had a little time in between to rest up, and I'm feeling a lot better than I was in the 10th round, that's for sure.
How crazy was it? I mean, I know you had a great season. You got to the NFR, but you won almost $250,000 at the NFR. Could you ever imagine, what was going through your mind? You start cashing checks and winning rounds, and probably winning more money than you ever thought possible at the NFR.
Yeah, for sure. Going into the NFR, I guess I should have set my goals a little higher. I wanted to win a go-around and make $100,000. And by the end of it, 3 go-arounds and almost $250,000 is a lot more than I expected. And, coming into the 7th and 8th round, I started realizing that I had a shot at a gold buckle. And I did up until the 10th round. And darn, it didn't work, but I'm ready for next year.
I was going to ask you got any special plans for that $250,000? Buying a place, or are you putting that away?
No, it actually, the PRCA lets us defer as much of it as we want for tax purposes. And the 80% I deferred hit a couple days ago, and it was quite a shocker.
I bet. That's awesome, man. I love it.
Well, how much, I know guys talk about life-changing money, and obviously you have that money in your account. What's it just mean to you in terms of your lifestyle and able to rodeo moving forward?
Within a 12-month period, I felt like I went from I went from having the least money I about ever had to the most. And, it's just crazy how life can change so quick. And I've been blessed to have some success, and especially where it counted the most at the NFR. And, it's unbelievable.
Let's talk a little bit about your start. It seems like you've carried that momentum right over into 2025, and obviously leading the world standings right now in the bareback riding. Does it feel like you're maybe riding as good as you ever have at this point?
Confidence plays such a big role in rodeo and in the rough stock events especially. You have to be all in every time you nod your head, and whenever you're winning, it makes it a lot easier to nod your head with confidence. And with the success at the NFR, I felt like it kind of rolled over to now. I've still been drawing good, been riding good, and it's working. And, coming into the NFR, I had only won 2 buckles in the PRCA before. And once I won my NFR buckle, I was like, here's when all the cool ones are going to start coming in. And I've won a couple since then, and darn, I can't wear them.
Was there one maybe light switch moment that clicked for you? That, you obviously had the talent, but a lot of guys might not figure it out, and then all of a sudden you went from, like you said, surviving, going down the road, hoping to get checks, to all of a sudden you're one of the best in the world. Was there a light switch moment for you?
There never was for me. It just started working, and whenever it started working, I just quit changing stuff and let it happen. The last year I've matured a lot, I think, in my riding, and just looking back at the Chase Hawks and Billings a year ago, I was trying to show somebody a horse a couple weeks ago, and man, I'm disappointed in how it looked a year ago, and I think that's what helped me the most. Is always knowing I can do better. And to this day, I don't feel like I've topped out yet. And I'm always looking for something to nitpick myself about to improve.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the class of bareback riders you guys have going down the road. It showed in Vegas when, we headed into round number 10, and there were still 4 or 5 of you in the hunt for a world title.
The class of bareback riders going down the road right now, I think it's the best that there's ever been. This year at the NFR, all 15 guys were capable of winning go-arounds, and if they drew right, to win a world title. And there's a lot of names in the hunt this year for a world title, and I think it's going to make it that much more awesome to be able to win one. So this year it's going to take no mistakes to do it.
How cool is it when you have such a great year and you set yourself up for the winter? Now you get into all these big winter rodeos. You don't have to worry about Houston and San Antonio, and I mean you can go to where you want to go, and it's got to help you the confidence of knowing getting into these bigger rodeos, but just to map out your schedule.
Yeah, for sure. I hope they don't turn me out of much this year, and that'll be a change from the past. Last year was my first year getting to go to Houston, and I messed a horse up in the third round to make the semifinals and have a shot at winning it. And this year, I hope I don't do that. But I also got invited to the American for being top 5 at the end of the year, and not having to. That'll free up a few weekends, not having to go through all the qualifiers.
No doubt about it. To take me through what it was like on those bucking chutes in Vegas. We always ask guys what it's like making that trip to Vegas and hearing Viva Las Vegas play in the background, the national anthem, and then getting ready to go. What was that like for you? Was it kind of a nervous moment, goosebumps? What was it like?
Growing up, I watched guys get on bucking horses on the Thomas and Mack, and I'd watched them from the grandstands. And, the first time walking in there for picture day, the day before the rodeo starts, it was just surreal looking at those yellow bucking chutes and knowing that I'm going to get to nod my head in one. But it still didn't feel that real until the next day. I walked straight in. I didn't even look at the arena. I went straight to the locker room. And then 30 minutes before the perf, we walk out to go hang our riggings on horses. And that's whenever it hit me. And I've never had a feeling like it. And I don't know if I'll ever feel that again. But it's crazy to get to go out of those bucking chutes that all your heroes have.
You speak of heroes. Was there any role models or anybody that helped you get to this, or anybody maybe you not copy their style, but guys you kind of tried to do things that they did?
My dad rode bucking horses, and he never got to go quite as far as I did, unfortunately, but he's helped me along the way, and I still call him to this day whenever I'm doubled up and I have 2 good horses. And he has a really unbiased opinion about, hey, Dad, which one am I going to get on here? What do you think I have the best shot at? Normally he's right, and whenever I do it my way, it's not right. So, but as far as riding goes, undisputedly, it's Casey Field. There's no one that's ever been as consistent as he has and rode as good as he has for so long. And it looks like I'm going to have to compete against him at the American. I haven't had a shot to compete against him very many times, but he's cracking it back out. I'm excited about it. Put some pressure on us.
Yeah, I was going to say, who did you travel with this past year? Who'd you jump in?
This past year, I've traveled Garrett Chadwell.
Okay, Gotcha. What is it like traveling with Garrett? He seems like one of those guys. We don't get to see him all the time, but kind of cool, calm, and collected at times. He's just going out there and doing what he can.
Garrett Shadbolt, he's a family man and a cowboy, and a rodeo cowboy's just on the side. That's he's way more mature than I am in a lot of ways, and he had made the finals before, and he was able to show me the ropes of how to get there, and sure enough, it worked. 2 years ago, we were supposed to travel together, and I guess I might have to take the maturity thing back because he jumped in a river and broke his ankles, but other than that, he's just a really good guy and a role model for me to look up to, and somebody I know that I'm not going to get in trouble with.
Yeah, no doubt.
You speak of trouble. When you started winning rounds in Vegas and going to the South Point, how do you put a corral on those nights? Those have to be some long nights and some fun nights, right?
You'd think so, but the problem with Vegas is it's not you don't get to party and then go home and rest up the next day. You have another bucking horse for another 30-something thousand the next night. So for me, I went to the South Point, and I enjoyed the buckle ceremony, and I went back, and we'd order in room service, and that was my treat to myself, and go to bed and get ready for another.
Probably didn't make it easy that you couldn't even hardly lift your head or turn your neck, huh?
Yeah, that didn't help much. I was kind of stuck to the side for the most part there.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about 2025 now. Obviously, you finished 2024 strong, and now it's about where can you go from here. How do you take that next step? I know you're obviously already right up at the top, finishing 4th in the world last year. How do you get that gold buckle that every cowboy wants?
it's gonna take the same hard work and perseverance it did last year to make the NFR. The only difference is now, like I said, I think my ride has matured. Now I have a chance at it. I'm gonna be able to carry that in from the beginning of the season. Last year, I didn't really turn it on until after all the winter rodeos were over. I'd won a little bit over the winter, but I felt like I started riding good later in the season. So I think if I can start now and do it for another 7 or 8 months, we'll be good.
What's it like when you have that schedule in front of you, but now we have all these huge events, standalone events and things that, I mean, you guys can win 20, 30,000 at rodeos that aren't Rodeo Houston or San Antonio because there's so many events now. It's got to make you like extremely happy thinking, man, this is all out in front of me.
It does. This last year I realized that I can do this and enjoy it and make a really good living doing it also. Before I guess I just wanted to be able to do it and get by and make the NFR. And I figured out if you get by and make the NFR, there's some perks that come with it. And with those big rodeos that pay so much, there's so much money to be won now during the regular season also, not just the NFR. And you have to draw right at those events, but you have to be in tune with yourself, and it can shake some things up for sure.
No doubt. Well, before we let you go, Bradlee here, our producer, Andrew Rosario, had a question he wanted to ask you. Andrew, if you want to pop in and ask him a question real quick.
Yeah, Bradlee, I just wanted to ask you about your recent trip to Petco Park and ask how was it, riding Old Gray Virgil, and for the first time. I feel like that's like a horse that every bareback rider dreams of getting on.
That's San Diego. It was an experience like no other. The first 2 days I got to get on some young horses from C5 that I couldn't find any videos of. It was hard to find any stats about them. And thankfully I won some money to put me through to the semifinals. The semifinals, I got on a bronc that's been a bronc for years, and I got to get on her in a rigging. And so that was kind of an experience. And then the 4 round, I got to get on Virgil, of course. And, it was everything leading up to that moment. I feel like this whole year and the NFR and everything prepared me for it. And I felt like I should have been more nervous than I was, but I think with the confidence that I had going into San Diego, I was able to just have fun and enjoy it.
Well, definitely deserved, no doubt about it. Bradlee, we can't thank you enough for joining us here on the Chute Bosses, man. Best of luck here in 2025, and I expect some fans might be seeing you here in Denver in a couple days.
Thank you very much. We'll see you all here.
There it is, Tracy. I appreciate Bradlee Miller jumping on here with us, and that's just one of those guys that you could tell, like he said, go back 12 months, he was the brokest he's ever been.
Right.
And then he gets a check that hits his bank account for, probably $210,000. That can change a lot when you're in your low 20s.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably reevaluating whether he wanted to continue rodeo. And, I mean, it gets tough when you're not winning money and you're going down the road. And then, and I remember talking about him when he won I believe it was the Texas Circuit Finals. He won on a split. He split the win, and he was like, man, I don't know. There's so many good guys here. I don't know, this and that. And I'm like, well, you're going to the NFR. And he sounded almost like he was like apologizing he was going to the NFR. He didn't know if he was good enough to go. And, we watched it,
He finished 4th in the world.
We watched it in person. And I think, honestly, if he doesn't get hurt, he might win the gold buckle. I know there's a lot of things that go into that. But we could see how hurt he was walking down the hallway. I mean, his shoulder, and there was things going on. But I'm sure he'll take, the $234,000 he walked away with. If you'd have told him that when it started in round 1, you're going to win $234,000 and finish 4th, he probably said, where do I sign up? And it's life-changing money. We hear guys talk about it all the time, but now you have money to rodeo this year for sure. Mm-hmm. And if you win more, obviously it stacks up, and then you have a career as a bareback rider and make a living at it.
Well, you mentioned, there's been multiple guys throughout your time in pro rodeo that have won big events, whether it was the American, whether it was Houston or whatnot, that kind of spurred their career into, being able to rodeo for the next 5 to 10 years. I think maybe it was a guy like R.C. Lanningham that was there as well.
Lanningham, and he was on the brink of making the NFR several times, and he finally got in, and he got that money. Wyatt Casper's the biggest story. Wyatt Casper was ready to give up rodeo. He had a family, he had kids, and wasn't doing anything, and it wasn't that he wasn't good enough. He just didn't have the money to go. And then that one year he won $100,000 at the American, and it changed his life.
And he's still rodeoing hard.
And then he almost won. He almost won the world this year. Yep. And he wins the average for the first time. It's just kind of like it's almost like the lotto. Certain things happen for a reason, and then everything from that point on changes your life if you're able to do the right things. And Bradlee looks like that type of guy. Obviously, he has the talent, and then you put talent in with the guy that has the confidence, and all of a sudden you realize how good they are.
Yeah, going to be interesting to watch, see how it shakes out on the bareback riding this year. Bradlee Miller obviously leading the charge right now, but a lot to shake out here in the next 10 months. Well, that's going to do it, Tracy, for the final time here on the Chute Bosses. We'll go ahead and give my call out. Until then, keep on rodeoing.
He's addicted to danger, ruled by passion and pride. To pain and fear he's no stranger, but his lust needs to be satisfied. Hooked on an 8-second ride.